Hello, selectors, and welcome back to the Wixoss podcast. I'm here, Andrew, and I'm accompanied with Jay over here. Jay, you got into top 4 with a pretty spicy Umir list.
Yes.
Jay, it's
I love my deaths and taxes.
I have to admit, man, when I heard what the top 4 was, when I heard the top 8 was, I was pretty surprised. But I love, us at the Wixoss podcast, we love a Umir list. So let's talk about it, man. How did you get into Wixoss? Why Umir for this GP list?
What is it? So, what is it? My local college, they play a ton of it, and I just saw them playing one day, and I'm just like, oh, I gotta try this game out.
Mm-hmm.
And then so I look at all the Eligs, and I saw put a Haskalisk on one of your opponent's Signy zones. What's a Haskalisk?
Yeah.
And I just found the idea of just, oh, I'm gonna use your Signy zone for my benefit to be really funny.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's what got me to Umu. Yeah, Umu.
Yeah, Umir. I don't think you can actually say her name wrong because she's supposed to be Cthulhu-y. So
Yes.
so it's unpronounceable by our human tongues, anyways. Anyways, I agree with you. Umir is a pretty interesting one. The longer the game can go forward, the longer that Hastelik can rack up, the worse it is for opponents. And honestly, stacks, that's the magic terms for that kind of thing, death and taxes, that type of stuff, can be a very interesting archetype. I think Umir is one of the few ones that does it well in Wixoss, so credit where credit's due, it's a very cool Elrig.
Yes, I love it so much.
So let's.
I actually.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I mentioned to you at the GP, but I stole your deck list when I first got into it, and then the blue-white deck list with Hamlin.
Yeah,
and I've just been working on it ever since.
This deck list actually isn't too far off of my current deck list too that I had for her, which is very cool to see that also you went in that direction as well. But it is a very, very interesting Elrig, especially, and we'll get into it when we talk about your deck list, but the ways that you can abuse that Hastelik for doing, more than what it's normally worth for. So you got the Umir running, and I believe you're in the same area as Neat, if I remember correctly.
I'm local to Neat. Yes.
Cool. So you had the head judge knowledge to help you out. I'm sure that local scene is pretty crazy with Neat being there and all.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah. How long have you been playing for Wixoss then?
About a year at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So honestly, not like super long.
Yeah.
I've fallen in love with the game though. It's just so fun.
It is really, really like an interestingly balanced game in terms of. So I come from a Magic the Gathering background.
Yeah, same.
And it's like Magic the Gathering. I wouldn't necessarily call that balanced nowadays. It's sort of like, I don't know. They've got these high peak power cards, and it's a little bit more of a snowballing gameplay than it used to be. Whereas Wixoss still has that back and forth, especially with the life cloth mechanic.
But, yes, I really enjoy the how if you're ahead, you give your opponent resources to get back into the game with life cloth.
Yeah, and I think one of the styles of play that doesn't necessarily benefit for it in Magic is the Death and Taxes or the stack style, whereas it seems to benefit a little bit more in Wixoss. Because by giving if your opponent is aggro, normally that would spell doom for that kind of a player in Magic. But here it supercharges you a little bit. Then you can really put down the prison locks,
Yeah.
But let's talk about some of your deck choices here. Umir obviously is the center. But then you've decided to go with an Urith Scare package and an Urith Afflict package. Clearly, you're valuing that mill a little bit here. I'm assuming, if I'm answering my own question here, the mill is just one refresh along with the Ultra Superheroes?
Yes. The fact that the refresh dies and Anna is also really good.
And
it's pretty free in the stack. Just getting the one extra damage.
Yeah, absolutely. So how often there's a valid question here with Urith Afflict. How often have you casted Urith Afflict for 2 to get that extra mill?
Almost always. There's not because all I have is the Earth line and the Ultra Superheroes. I'm not playing any Flores or anything,
Hmm.
so I almost always spend the extra 2 for it.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Plus, I mean, Urith is one of those few times that you can actually kill these like 13Ks or these 15Ks with its effects. Whereas the commonly used one outside of that is Machina, and Machina can't answer an H2O or answer a Remember. Did you have that in any of
Yeah.
your GP games that have come up?
Not in my GP games,
Hmm.
but definitely in practice it comes up.
Yeah.
Especially if you don't grow immediately on when you're level 2 and you save it for later in the game
Hmm.
because the hole hasn't been opened up. The fact that it can get higher powers is very useful.
It's true. I was in the GP myself. One round, I had my opponent. He only had like 3 cards left in his deck, and he was like, "All right, I'll grow my Urith Afflict. Let me see what I give like negative thing." And I was like, "It's like a -1,000,000. It kills anything. I'm sure whatever you're
Yes.
targeting's dead. We don't have time for this." So okay, so the Urith package totally makes sense, but let's talk a little bit about your choice here for your Liz package. So with Liz, you went with Ice Wall, which clearly gives you a little bit of defense here. I mean, it makes sense, 1 stop and plus a 2 stop, so that way you can go a little bit later into the game. But well, the thing that I'm more interested in is that you have a Liz bounce. So that means that you have double removal at your level 1 assist end. Why'd you decide to go with that route rather than some kind of like classic draw mentality or something?
So so the reason I don't have a draw is because I had to choose lies because I tried McLion and the annual requirements and card requirements for the 3 stop just doesn't happen with the stack.
Hmm.
And I tried Yuka Yuka, but it's I wanted more than a 1 stop,
Hmm.
and it's 3 stop. The opponent can just pay for it most of the time, so I ended up not liking that. So I ended up falling on lies, and she doesn't have a draw level 1,
Yeah, I mean, unless you're
which
playing
kind of
virtuals,
sucks.
which
But
I
yeah,
don't see any virtuals in this list.
it does come up though where on your level 3 you play Monoman,
Hmm.
and your opponent has no cards in hand, so you just bounce the card 10k or lower, and then done the attack phase you just discard it with Monoman
Mm,
for a free value basically.
I see. I see. Yeah, that definitely could come up. I get it. But to supplement that draw, clearly, now that I'm looking just a little further down on the deck list, you've got Wish In.
Yes. Without any draw assist, you really needed the extra card advantage. And Wishing just does that. Just draw a card every single turn.
It's true, and if this game is if this and correct me if I'm wrong here, Umir seems to want to drag that game out long, right? In order
Yes,
to make that
definitely.
hassle like effect work, which means that Wish In, the trick is you basically need to get 3 cards worth of value with it, so that would be turn 2, 3, 4, 5 ish, So it makes sense that Wish In could then start accumulating more value just as time goes on. Could you tell me about Wish In? It seems like it would be particularly powerful against the discard decks, which I know you faced at least a couple discard decks, right?
Yes. I faced Aya. I faced Pigeon twice with his Madoka list.
Yeah.
It's really helpful against discard because like if they discard you draw 3 every single turn, which is so valuable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's kind of awkward actually versus Anj though, because they tend to bounce a lot, so it kind of whiffs a lot. In the Anj matchup specifically.
Mm-hmm.
But since they're bouncing, you already have enough cards in hand, so it doesn't really matter.
That's true. That's what I found too. Is specifically that like with Anj, you could basically be like, all right, well, I don't need to worry about discard. In fact, I can put out level 1s that I know they'll buy me back. Abuse Yuki, for example, is a good one. You can throw Yuki out there knowing that you'll eventually get it back.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
And then scrolling right down to your main list here. Speaking of Yuki, it's one of your 4-ups. Why'd you decide to go with
Yes.
like a straight up 4-up for the Yuki?
Yuki is just amazing. It works great with Exia
Mm-hmm.
against Exia. Either you target it with something like you remove a card and you move it to the Exia lane, or more often in this deck because most of my holes is from you. I actually play Yuki and then target one of the cards on the field to trigger Exia before the attack phase,
Mm-hmm.
and then I can use Mew to kill something on the attack phase, but it can still attack.
Yep.
It also moves Signy into the Haslix lane, which is super valuable.
Yeah, that does seem like that's a pretty key for it, especially if you've supposedly remove something, move it into another lane. Yeah, that makes sense to me. Well, then you've got your deck is actually pretty. Now that I'm looking at it, definitely has some redundant forests in here. Monoman clearly does the job of reducing the cards in hand. I don't think we need to talk about why Monoman is or is not good. But you decided to go with, instead of Falulu, you wanted Bruno's specifically, it looks like. Why Bruno's over Falulu for your level 2 slot?
I just Falulu is the I'm sorry.
It's a level 2, 8,000 Monoman.
The Monoman, right?
Yeah, it's just Monoman.
Yeah. So this deck, like, even with Wishin, it still runs into hand issues.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that it's 0 cards to discard your opponent, or if they're already a 0 to be able to draw a card, is really valuable.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense there too. There are some decks that I've run in Bruno with no intentions to discard my opponent out. It's just there to just draw a card at level 2. All right, well then coming back over to level 1 real quick, you've got several, and I mean 4 of Futase. Futase, right? Yeah,
Burst is so busted. Like, the entire card is busted. The fact that the burst still is a stop when it on your opponent's third Signy attack is really good.
Mm-hmm.
It actually saved me in top 8 because he played Tama Ora.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that it stops up to 2 is insane.
Yeah, multiple.
The Shadow level 1 and level 2 is also insane.
Mm-hmm.
Because first of all, it stops the level 2 virtual that bounces at level 1.
Yep, Toto.
It stops like Romeo's and all the other level 1s that kill something. And it also being a 3K, so is also really valuable because part of the gameplay, you have to be able to kill your opponent's Signy. Because Immortal needs to be able to tax both Ana and hand, because you can pay either one with the trigger.
Right.
So you have to be able to kill all the Signy every single turn. So the fact that it's 3K is really important, opposed to 2K or lower.
I found that too as well when I was running Remember Control, and I also similarly found that situation happening a lot, where it's like you just gotta vanish their Signies, and the 3K matters in this scenario for like Haniel, for example, which is a 2K. But I was also running Zhao Yun's, so I can agree with you that Shadow level 2 or less Signy was particularly good at this GP. Just stopping Totos themselves is really, really, really strong for the virtual stuff. And speaking of virtuals, how many virtuals matchups did you end up playing against in the?
A single one.
Just one.
Orange in top 8, and that's it.
Well, I guess that's the time it matters if you're able to win against it. We'll talk more about your rounds in just a second. Let's just finish out the deck list tour for those people who are listening to get the spice of this. You're running for Yukimi and for Musica. I assume, again, this is the same reason why you would run it in Umir. You put it in front of the Hastalik. That way, if you vanish something, if they kill something in the Hastalik lane, then it goes to their trash instead of their enter. You can use Umir's ability to move it around, so you end up attacking another thing and trashing it, so you get 2 trashes for the price of 1. That's its main function, I'm assuming, right?
Yes, Musica also really helps against Espa matchups, because it just keeps shuffling 2 cards back into your deck every time, so it's really hard for your opponent to actually refresh you.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that it also kills 1 and 2Ks is really good, because it's free holes, basically. Especially when you get them 0 cards in hand, so they kind of forced out to play their servants and such.
Mm-hmm.
It's just instant hole.
Yeah, makes sense. And honestly, there's a fair amount of 2Ks running around the meta right now, more than I expected, anyways. But I guess that's something that helps with virtuals and some of these like Oiganas and stuff like that. Question. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. Another funny thing that comes up is if you it came up in the GP is if you have Musica or Yukime on the field, and your opponent plays a card of Lancer, you can you if you vanish them during the attack phase, or you it'll music will trash them during the attack phase, the opponent's attack phase.
Mm-hmm.
If you use the Yoth Yoth assist in front of Musica or Yukime, it also trashes during the attack phase, which is kind of insane.
Yeah. So honestly, how often do you do that in the GP run? Right. I know it's an ability to do that, but theoretically, unless they had Lancer or Assassin, you aren't you're giving up a damage if you go ahead and do it during that. How often do you do it where you're like, actually, I want to make sure that I get the enter denial here and the safe open lane, so let me go ahead and do this on a signals in front of
So I
this.
meant during my opponent's attack phase. It
Mm-hmm.
also works. I don't. The only times like comes up in testing sometimes where you just need to push damage,
Mm-hmm.
but I almost never do it just to deny.
Got it.
I always like go on the assist. That is,
Right,
I
right.
always try to use it as a defense because the longer I live means the better my game plan is going.
Got it. So you basically are only saying, I'm going to do that if they've got Assassin or Lancer in front of a
Yeah.
Musica or a Yukimi. Um, Another question with Musica, because Musica is just a really interesting card. There's so many
It's so
things that's like makes it good, but also weird. So it's not just commonly used, right? And this is one of the only decks I can see it being a four of in. Um, how often do you see like how often do you get in a scenario with Musica that your deck is low enough on cards that like putting things back with Musica is a solid plan, and you usually start seeing those cards?
so I know I had a game where I only had two cards in deck, so I could shuffle exactly or march you back into deck to guarantee the draw for the hole on the following turn. And the fact that you can just keep putting back your threes in your deck is really good because that means you just have better on average draws throughout the game.
Yeah, it is true. That's one of even the things that like I was noticing with my Remember Control was even with the filter 3, it was difficult for me to continuously put out a 3-3 something split. So that way I had the advantage, the snowball even more advantage in the late game. So
Yeah.
Musica just packing that in there makes it more and more common, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact is, like I play against specific matchups like Anj or Remember, being able to shuffle back Remembers back into the deck is really valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's
And
talk
my
about
other one, yeah,
it,
you can go.
and so you do have Remembers in the deck, specifically two of them. That was something I noticed that this deck kind of gets crowded on the level 3 slot a lot. But you've got yourself two Remembers here. I assume just because the taxing is sort of necessary in this type of deck.
Yes, it's really yes because you almost your ideal board state is double Yukime or double Musica, but you also so that's why I only want two Remember. It's good in the matchups it's good against, and not really good otherwise. So like
Mm-hmm.
against specifically Remember is Elvic, it's really good. Against Anj on the play, it's good because it taxes. They can't bounce it with the Anj, and it also taxes the abilities.
Mm-hmm.
Where on the draw, it's pretty bad because they just activate both of their bounces when
Yeah.
they're level 3 and I'm level 2 and it does nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's like although we had like Iona, it's also good against like the weird ones with action abilities.
Mm-hmm.
It's good against. I don't really use it for the guard text as much.
Got it. So it's more just like a way to interact with the opponent, in other words, on their turn to
Yes.
sort of make things like a bumpy road for them. Got it. So then let's fill out. Well, before we fill out our rounds of threes, you've got two more level twos here. You've got the Folklore. I haven't seen a Folklore in
Folklore.
a while, so it's cool to see it here. How is it as a 10k body, a level 2, and has that life burst been relevant at the GP?
No, it wasn't. I'm trying to. I don't think it was relevant at the GP. But
Mm-hmm.
the fact that it's just a 10k, just being able to beat over at level 2 is just really valuable. Because it just taxes the hand, being able to kill all this stuff every single turn.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense to me. Totally. And then jumping back on the level 3 train, I see two Mews here. So I'm assuming. Let me try to test out my Umir skills here. So I'm assuming the Mew is there as a way that either before or after you've moved your Yukimi or your Musica, it gives you access to another way to trash and open a lane.
Yeah. So the idea is you have I'm trying to think of the first. You have Yukime in front of a Signy. You have Mew in front of the Hassless zone. You trigger Mew, you trash the Signy, you swap Mew and Yukime, trigger Haskalisk, and then obviously they pay, and then you trash the Signy on attack.
Mm-hmm. Yep. that is a rock and a hard place for the opponent.
Yes. It's
Um, and not to mention, Mew can get back a level 1, and it feels like you really like Yuki in this deck.
yes.
And then to round off our level 3s, we've got one Orochimaru. I assume that's if your hand gets overfilled by specifically Anj. Then that's there to bounce things back and get yourself a card, right?
Yes. It's used it's really good just being able to just play it, pay 2, get a guard, and then trash. Just the fact that it gets a guard back is really valuable.
So
and it's also a hole in the late game.
yeah. That makes total sense to me. And then last but not least, of course, is the gay Balg. So the Balg is another source of card draw and also not necessarily trash. Well, yeah, trashing. It's a way to deny resources and get yourself card draw in this version of the deck, right?
Yes, it's really good against the Esper matchups with this card. Because it's guaranteed +1 card, and it still trashes.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I went down from on my Remember Control from 2 of these to 1, and I was just terrified that I was gonna hit the Esper match and not have like the amount of wiggle room I need for doing. I do genuinely think Balg is an Esper killer.
Yes, it also kills. If you don't have Yuki, it also kills 15Ks and Remembers
Mm,
and random 13Ks, which Yukime and Musica will not.
yeah, that makes total sense to me. Um, well, okay, so that's your deck in a nutshell. I'm sure a lot of people are very excited to try this out. Their locals too. You'd be surprised how many times I've gotten messages on the channel for people who are just really want to find an Umir build that works well.
I would. So the blue count's a bit iffy in the deck. There's several matches in the GP where you just get screwed over on blue.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were to use this deck list, I would actually recommend cut in. What was the thing? It's like one Yukime, one Yuki, and play ZR and a level 1 blue burst.
ZR's
Just to
a
increase the pow.
yeah, and ZR's a good one too. ZR came in really clutch throughout my GP run. Just being able to open up a small lane and more specifically actually make the opponent discard a card. Just having yet another random drain. You've got 4 random drains here. What's the fifth another random drain? This time
Yes.
actually being random.
Random drain is good.
It is a strong card, especially in that Esper matchup. It's just actual advantage there. All right, cool. So we talked about your reasoning for wanting to do the Umir when you were going to the GP. You were doing rounds 1 through 7. You ended up. What was your score in the end?
I was 6-1 at the end of Swiss.
That's an amazing score. You should be super
Yes.
proud of it. So with the 6-1 record, what did you learn during the GP? What did you play? What were some advantages? What were some weaknesses that you were running into? What were things that you were playing around? Tell us about your experience in the actual rounds themselves.
It was so nice to be able to face a bunch of different Elvigs that I've never faced against before. What is it? First of all, the Madoka matchup is awful for this deck. They just have too much card advantage, and it's just awful.
Mm-hmm.
It's also green is also really difficult with this. I ended up winning against Bang,
Mm-hmm.
but they had like 10 out of the game. Like my taxes did nothing because they just ended charge 3 every single turn.
Yeah, it's usually that's that's Green's one claim to fame, if we can even say it has Super 1, is that it doesn't necessarily fold to discard right away, and it also doesn't necessarily fold to enter burn or enter restrictions. It doesn't necessarily make it a great color, but it's got something. um,
Yes.
so cool.
I also think.
Yeah, go
Oh,
ahead.
you can go. You can go. Sorry.
No. I was going to ask you about more about
Yeah.
your rounds.
It's better if you like. Yeah. Why do you ask questions? Because it's kind of like super blurry for me. I'm just
Yeah,
trying to think.
it gets hazy,
Anything.
trying to run through those rounds, especially like when you're winning. You're like, I'm just in the zone, and I'm trying to play my best. I don't remember exactly what happened, but they said I won at the end of it, so I must have did something. Um, so you won against, you said, in your rounds you won against some green decks. You beat some Esper decks as well. Aside from, I guess, was did I catch that your one loss was against Pigeon with Madoka?
Yes.
Got it.
I won against the Remember. I'm usually Remember list. That doesn't really count though because I had like 6 bursts in my cloth.
I mean, you're the one who built the deck, so those bursts are technically your bursts.
Right.
You're allowed to get those games.
Yes, I won with 4 life cloth. I flipped them over, and there's 3 more bursts in life cloth.
Oh God. Those games, they're blessings from God, and you just go ahead and go, all right, cool, I got one of them.
Yes.
You just remember that the next time you flip no bursts in an entire game.
Yeah.
And you go, all right, well, I deserved it. That was karma. So aside from running hot in this is a softball question. This is your first GP, right?
Yes, it was.
How did it feel to get up into top 8 suddenly on your first GP?
I would have been happy to go even. The fact that I got top 4 is actually insane.
Yeah, pretty crazy for sure. So, but you made it into top 8, which is, congrats on its own. This is one of the most interesting top 8s I've ever seen in terms of Elrig diversity.
Oh yeah,
and that has no small part due to you. Let's talk about it. You got your top 8. You got your Umir Sleepy that's going to be sent to you soon.
yes.
You're gonna get yourself a. You're gonna join the club. We're in. Hey, I've got it on the screen here. So I want to do it. I don't want to brag a bit. You can join the fun little Ultra Superheroes club that we got here. Get the Ultra Superheroes from top 8. So yeah, that's gonna be exciting when those things come. I hear they just literally sent them out, so they may be coming in soon. But then you sit down. Your top 8 matchup is against virtuals. Did you play any virtuals? You didn't play any virtuals prior in the rounds 1 through 7, right?
No, one of my locals bought into Ninja Sanji and bought Ange.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a bunch of practice into the matchup.
Great. So then you're ready for this question then. You're sitting in front of the Ange player. This is the boogeyman of the format, supposedly, right now. What's going through your head? What are you thinking I need to prioritize? This is how I beat this game. These are sort of the strats that I'm thinking about. What are you looking to do during this game?
I'm looking to play Futase because Futase is a fantastic level 1 against specifically Ange. I'm looking to try to get my try to find my holes early because I can sort of, I can't really base, but it's kind of fun, but it's like I can deal enough damage where I can get them to 0 life cloth by the time they get cloth, sort of. So I just need to find my holes to be able to deal damage this matchup.
Mm-hmm.
The taxes don't really matter this game because all this stuff, both the pieces cost 0 enter. Why do both of the Ninja Sanji pieces cost 0 enter? For the effects.
And in some cases give them enter too.
Yes, which is actually insane. So this matchup, I don't really try to focus on taxes, but it's more trying to put up my defensive signature, which is Futase and Members in this case, and trying to get my holes in.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense to me. To further along with what you were saying, what I was finding in my testing as also a long game deck is that in the Anj matchup, you just recognize that you're on a clock, right? Like the more time you give Anj to, even though they probably you may have like settled against them, they don't have any more real ways to deal damage on the board. It doesn't mean that they won't draw into a Chikase and then double attack you. Not to mention those Elrig attacks do add up eventually, right?
Yes.
You do run out of guards. So the right move is to end the game, right? Like you've got to slow the game down long enough for you to get in the damage that you need and end the game like around turn 5 or 6 tops. So I'm assuming, because you made it to top 4, is that what happened in your matchup?
Yes, I actually, funny enough, so I had 2 Anu. I was level 2, so I went first. I was level 2, I had 2 Anu, my opponent's attack phase. I spent both Anu to grow into the Flick and pay out the Milfoy. And then they dealt 3 damage. I didn't get any blue Anu, so I skipped my grow to 3. And then luckily I had to use in hand, and I drew another one off of Ultra Superheroes. So I was able to put up a 2/2/2 board.
Yeah.
Which is really funny.
Yeah.
And then which is really funny to me.
I mean,
I somehow end up winning through.
That 2/2/2 board can technically, depending on their hand, especially if you put a lot of emphasis on shredding their hand a little bit, which, I mean, why wouldn't you, right? Like, you're getting the free cards back to your hand with Monoman. Go ahead and shred it up, right? The 2/2/2 board is almost like a 3/3/2 board in that scenario, because if they draw, let's say, a Over Pursuit and a Toto, right? They have no targets for it still. So as long as you're not showing your obvious weakness by putting up a 1, the 2/2/2 board can sometimes be more advantageous than a 3/3/1 board, because you don't give yourself any holes whatsoever.
Yes. And then matchup, like, obviously the piece that mills is really bad, but giving me perfect information of Life Cloth was very useful that game. Because it let me figure out that I had which let me play my Lizzie assist better.
Yeah, you can sort of like understand, all right, look, I think this is where my burst is, therefore this is what I need to protect, and this is what I can give up right now. Like if this is a burst, then I don't have to Lizzie. I can wait 1 extra turn and then pull the Lizzie. I hear you. It is weirdly important. So far, everyone we've talked to in the top 8 has said it's by getting refreshed, they've memorized the deck list, they've memorized what bursts are going to happen next, and they've kind of figured out what order it would be in, and they've used that to their advantage to get themselves in a better place for aggro.
Yes, it's very important knowing your deck list to figure out bursts.
Totally. So the next matchup you're up against, I believe, is Pigeon, right?
Yes, the rematch.
Got it. So it's grudge match, and spoilers, I believe you lost this one, since Pigeon did eventually go on to take first place. Although, let's be honest, if you're going to lose to anyone, losing to the person who takes first place is still probably a pretty good spot to be in. Not to mention, you do get to go home with a trophy. I remember top 4 gets a trophy now.
Yes.
Super sweet. So talk to me about that matchup. Talk to me about how things maybe didn't go your way with this, so it could be maybe a little bit of a warning case to other people who are looking to pick up this deck and try to navigate the rocky seas that seems to be this Madoka matchup.
So I can't really comment that much because I punted by turn 3. I accidentally drew from Wushin before going to 3, and I just punted so hard. So then I only had 2 level 1s in hand, and I had to play them pass, basically. It was a terrible game.
Yeah, I mean those happen, man. I punted one of my games as well in it. So I mean, like it is difficult to go at a GP, and this is for anyone who's listening. It is difficult to go 4 rounds and be flawless during 4 rounds. It is a completely different game to try to be perfect for 7 rounds in a row, and then on top of that, an extra 2 to 3 to make it to the end. You know, it's tough. It's one of those things where Tiffany and I would sit before the GP, and we would just free out literally 4 or 5 hours, and we would just play matches on matches on matches on matches, back to back just to try to get up our like stamina for this kind of thing, because it is a very 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 difficult type of thing. But so this now in the rear view mirror. How are you feeling about Umir? We were talking before we hit the record button here. It seems like you might have some ideas of what you want to change moving forward, or some other things, other thoughts that you have, potentially coming up with this new color break that theoretically be coming up.
Yes.
What do you got?
So with the color break, you can now play keep the same main deck basically, but play red and white assists
Mm-hmm.
to be able to play Go to the Top, the burn 3 arrow. And you can also play Deathbeam Diva, the burn 3 more arrow. So the fact that you get 6 arrow burn in your pieces with the same main deck is actually insane.
Yeah, that's pretty cruel. But it does actually solve maybe one of the weaknesses that I was finding with the Umir deck, which is, like you said, in order to make your mill work, you have to vanish the Signy on the field. That gives them enter.
Yes.
So this is sort of the way to counteract that. You've given them enter because you're ripping away their hand, but then you take the enter away. Is that what you're saying? Your idea is?
Yes. It's a bit. I can actually share my current blue if you want it.
Yeah, sure.
I think that should work.
Yeah. Let me just go ahead and pull it up here. This is my first time doing the stream with the OBS as well as us talking, so it just takes me a minute to get that up here. And
I've only just started working on it, so it's definitely subject to change. But
hey, I'm happy to take a sneak peek at anything you got the offer to. All right, let's go back into Discord and share screen. Great. So let's take a sneak peek at this that you've provided us with. So basically, same main deck here. Oh wait, did I just pull up the old deck? Give me a second. There it is. Great. All right. So you're looking at a Yuzuki edition. So your idea is to go back to Lion with Lion, MC, Dig, and Disrespect. But then you've got Yuzuki Garnet to vanish and also Enterburn a little bit in the early game. And then the last one here is a level 1 to also vanish, so 1 stop, very cool. 12k or less. And then you can spend the extra 2 to Enterburn your opponent 1 more time on their turn, which is quite powerful. Not to mention, go to the top here, which allows you to pull out 1 card in specific, which theoretically is actually kind of really cool with this type of deck. I said earlier that it seems like the level 3s are a little tight. Like there's just a lot of level 3s that you're trying to put in here. With Go to the Top, that allows you to search your deck and actually toolbox a little bit, right?
Yes. So I haven't put too much thought, but you could definitely cut. You can probably cut music. You can make musicas, then play like 1 of each, then play like 1 XTR in addition, plus a little toolbox package. Because you're always guaranteed to get at least 1. Because you can always just fetch it with Go to the Top.
I see where you're going with this. I like the Orion as also being a fetchable option, just to freeze all of your opponent's field, right? Like, I guess that's also a pretty good way. And then during your opponent's turn, if a Signy would leave the field, that seems like a pretty solid choice here as a 1-of with that. Interesting. Very cool. Definitely a nice place to start with the brainstorming. Thanks for giving a sneak peek to what everyone else might be wanting to run with this thing. But great. Do you have anything else you wanted to say before we do our sign off? This is your chance to shout out anyone in particular, your socials, or literally anything else that you want at the very end.
And just shout out to my play group, just my locals. Just great practice going in.
And look, can't tell you enough how much I appreciate that you came in here and shared us your knowledge of the Umir deck and how to run it, as well as a future sneak peek into where this deck might be headed. I wish you the best luck with everything else happening. hopefully you'll see you at GP number 3.
Hopefully.
Nice. All right then. Thank you for coming on. I'll see you later.
Yep. Adios.